nothing goes anywhere. In fact, I'm not sure if I'm even going to share them because truly these are the shittest slides I've ever put together. I did it really fast for you. But content is awesome. So what I wanted to do was just take you through some of the highlights from UX Week. So UX Week, for those of you who might be new to it, it's run by Adaptive Path, that amazing agency over in San Francisco, who have recently been acquired by Capital One. So that's kind of the latest tactic of the financials. You know, we don't want to build a department, we'll just buy a whole company. Boom, UX. So yeah, I'll just go through each one of the speakers who were interesting and kind of some stuff that happened. So the keynote who kicked off in UX Week was Leah Billy. I don't know if you know her. She wrote the UX Team of One book. So what her talk was about was actually about getting UX into organisations. And she had a couple of points which I thought were, you know, gold. This one about millennials is a little scary to me. They're like 75% of the workforce is going to be millennials in 10 years. I try to understand the millennials who work at my company. I'm doing my best. Some days I get it right, some days I'm just shit. And the other point that she made, which I think was really salient, is that for organisations now to succeed, just, you know, competent UX is not enough for them. They actually need to be delivering great UX. And the slide that I've got the picture of up here, she's talking about the ways that organisations are structured. So whether your organisation is outdated in its UX capability, whether it's a progressive organisation or whether it's actually modern, and there are a bunch of lenses that she looked through to determine that. One is being the scope, you know, are they just digital? If they're just digital, then you've got an outdated UX in your organisation. Multiple digital touch points, that's progressive. And end-to-end digital and non-digital, that's actually a modern UX organisation, because we don't just operate in website land anymore. It just isn't like that. And also, you know, if the strategy, you know, if it's outdated, then it's absent completely. Or if UX sets the vision, then that's modern. So that was a really interesting set of lenses to look at organisations through, and most people, she did a show of hands of, you know, who's in outdated, who's in modern, who's in progressive. Most people were in the outdated and kind of a little bit tentative to put their hands up to say they were progressive, but very few people were hitting all of those markers. The next speaker who was quite interesting to me was Eleanor Paik. It was weird, actually. Okay, so these people do telepresence devices. So, who's seen that episode? Is it Flight of the Con? No, it's something else. Which one of the sitcoms where one of these people is working from home? Big Bang Theory. Thank you very much. Yeah, so Big Bang Theory. So basically that's the device where an individual can work from home and they can pilot it around the office. And it's really creepy. And she was talking about the challenges of this kind of a device, which is a robot that's trying to embody a person. And the really creepy thing about it was that it came to drinks. That's the beam, which is just what it's called. That's the beam at drinks. And the beam was walking around and trying to talk to people, and it was weird. So this whole weirdness was actually something that she covered in her talk, which is this uncanny valley. So on one end, you've got something that you're comfortable with, which is, say, a doll. On the other end is something else that you're also comfortable with because it's real. And in the middle, there's this thing called the uncanny valley, which is very unsettling and a bit unwelcoming. And they're like, we tried to make sure that it didn't fall in that uncanny valley. Fail. Well, everybody was weirded out by it. So the other thing about UX Week is it's a bit rock and roll. So when the speakers come up on stage, or when Jesse James Garrett comes back up on stage, there's a dude doing the announcing going, everybody, welcome Jesse James Garrett back up on the stage. And there's like rock music. It was, yeah, really rock and roll. And he had purple hair, for those who like care. Yay. It was a question in the pre-conference survey, what colour is Jesse James' hair going to be today? And like 12% of people cared. So what I wanted to show you, just in the whole rock and roll aspect of it, but also to show you some different stuff that can get done as a conference. I wanted to show you these guys. So they're Illuminate. I'm just going to jump out to, where is that gone now? Here we go. Beauty, bring that across. Win. Okay, now we're going to hope for sound, because it's a bit shit without sound. so you kind of get the gist of that.
Yeah.
So those guys actually performed at the conference, which was really neat. And everybody was very excited to, be a part of that. But the interesting thing that they actually did, over and above the whole, performance and dancing and music and everybody going yay, was the lady who started Illuminate got up and explained to everybody how they actually do the user experience for that. So behind that is a choreographer, computer technicians, people who do all of the choreography, the physical choreography and the lighting choreography. There's the dancers. And she was talking about how all of those people come together and they treat them as users in their experience design for the whole thing. And then there's the audience as well. So she talked about a really, really complex way of designing things and considering different user groups. And she also said that because everybody was so different and they worked together and they all understood each other's perspectives because it was such an open, communicative environment. So that was very neat. Right. Okay. Get on her Twitter, right? This lady is hilarious. She's a game designer, Erin Hoffman, and she basically got up and I think the funniest thing she said was like, game designers need to be saved from themselves. But she was a really cool chick. But the idea that she put across, which I thought was most interesting out of her talk, was that we actually should allow our users to feel a bit of pain. It's okay. Because she was using this concept of fun theory, where you convert fear into happiness via surprise, ta-da, fun. And that if you can help a user get out of pain, then that's actually really meaningful, and you can take that and transform those emotions into something else. The next speaker who was really cool was Abby Covert. She's an IA of world renown, and her talk was about making sense of mess, any kind of mess. And the things that were my major takeaways from that was she was saying that the language that you use really matters in an organization, and to that point there's actually no right way of doing it. And the thing that she explained was how in organizations where it's really siloed, everybody's got their thing that they want to call stuff, and she describes that as the corporate underpants. And I think she kind of started going along with this and then went, how do I get out of it? And she's like, you have to get people to take off their corporate underpants. And then I could see it in her face, she's like, this is not going in the direction that I was hoping for. Shit, I'm going to have to talk about corporate commando in a minute. But she also said the other interesting point was to help people understand information as a material, which is very difficult to do. You actually need visual assets to communicate to each other. And this one was gold, which is whoever picks up the marker in the room owns the project, which is true. And she also wrote a book, which if you go to her Twitter handle, you'll be able to find the link to her book. She gave me a book and I said, thank you. And then I said, can you sign it? And she said, sure. And again, to the whole rock and roll thing again, this was just weird. Apollo Robbins was there. He gave a talk and stole shit from people. That was kind of his contribution. It was weird. And the only thing that I really took away from his, from a user experience point of view, there was the aspect of diversionary tactics. So we could talk about how you can use diversion to get people to either not notice you doing something over here, i.e. diverting your attention while I pinch your watch. But the other thing that he said was that, doing unto others as you would have done unto you is actually wrong, because how would you know that what they want done is the same thing as you? Which I think actually gets to the guts of empathy, to the guts of you are not the user, I am not the user. That's not the case. You actually have to talk to the people who you are going to design something for. So I gave him points for that. I also did four workshops. The first one I went to was experience mapping, to kind of see how they did it, and really I started a Twitter fight, pretty much, is what happened there. So Chris Risden is the head of design at Adaptive Path / Capital One. He was running the experience mapping, and he made me very confused because he defined a touch point. So I've heard touch points defined as, like the web, or the call center, or the branch. So that's a pretty traditional understanding of a touch point. Chris Risden came up with the fact that the touch point is not that. A touch point is something when a user or customer needs something from your product or service. That's a touch point. Okay, yes, shaking head there. And that's why I started a Twitter fight, because I was like, I don't buy that dude. And he in the second one that I did, which was with Nick, anyway, at Dreamus, that dude, he defined the touch point in a way that I recognised, and they both worked for the same company. And I think one is the other dude's boss. So I thought, this will be a fun Twitter fight. Anyway, and off they went. And so I started that Twitter fight, and that was all sorts of fun. And then it just got stupid, because Andrew Hinton weighed in and said, let's do it in Jello. So this was me doing service design blueprinting. I am two people. Look, so I went to the service design blueprinting workshop to get somebody to adequately explain service design blueprinting to me. Again, I'm not stupid, okay? I'm not. But I'm still trying to find a way to apply what they show me in workshops in my day-to-day practice. This one was a little bit better. But then again, Andrew Hinton kind of weighed in on Twitter on it and then said, don't ever use post-it notes. And this is interesting because his point of view was post-it notes are squares, and squares want to be rows and columns. And so the natural shape of the post-it notes makes us create relationships that might not necessarily exist. So I thought, well, that was interesting. He uses circles or blobs or scraps of paper and things like that to not constrain thinking. I thought that was interesting. The other workshop that I did was with this guy, and he was fantastic. So Alistair Somerville, he is a sensory UX designer, and his workshop was pitched. It was called Designing for Wearables, and it just wasn't. It was nothing to do with it. Basically, it was actually about sensory design, and there was discussion of wearables and how they're used. A lot about how he was doing things in the disability sector, which was really interesting. But the points that I really took away from that was that you have to be very careful when you're designing anything for wearable, because you're playing with people's personal space. So you have to play very carefully. And the other one is that we, as designers, we can only enhance the experience that somebody has with a wearable. We can't own it, because a person's understanding of what happens to them, like if somebody buzzes on them, is down to them. It's down to how their body responds to a physical stimulus. So you can make something buzz, but you've got no idea how they're going to interpret that and what they're going to actually think about that. This could, I'm not even going to go there.
Well, you design it.
So, and the other really great thing that he said, which I love, was the brilliance of humans is we are not restricted by reality at all, because we can predict, we can anticipate, and we can imagine. And I thought that was a really nice way that he ended up. So, this lady, if you're into participatory design, get onto this lady's stuff. I can't even get through a whole workshop in there, but she uses exercises to try and get people to be their authentic selves. And participatory design is great, especially if you're dealing with sensitive topics. You can enable people to help people notice stuff that's just part of the fabric of their lives. And you can get them to project, to deal with those sorts of sensitive topic areas like mental health issues, things like that. That's just a list of techniques, too much. All right, now, I'll admit, I was a little hungover when I was trying to listen to this lady's talk. She talked about typography and subtlety in design. It's a thing. So there are people who think about this stuff. The fact that Facebook here is not as fat as Facebook here. I would point out to you this redesign of the MailChimp logo. Here's the old one. Here's the new one. Where the red spots are, the overall weight was lightened and things were made thinner at touch points.
It does
sure.
make it does. I'm
Look,
sorry.
man, I know this matters. This matters to somebody. This matters to people. Kerning matters to people. Things going above and below the lines that matters to people. I respect that. Those people have their jobs. I have my job. I'm cool with my job.
Good.
But anyway, if you're interested in typography, she's the lady for you. No, this chick was awesome. Okay, so the other really terrific thing that they did at UX Week was they came and they addressed gender bias. So this lady came at it from a neuroscience angle, but there's a couple of interesting things that I wanted to show you that she showed, so bear with me. So bias is absolutely everywhere, but we often fail to see it, and it's because neurologically we're actually programmed that way. This was one of my favorite examples from her. So bias starts really, really early. This is from a Barbie book, where Barbie is, you know, she's doing her thing as a designer, hard at work on her laptop. And she's making a game. She's designing a game, a robot puppy game. And Skipper's really excited about coming to play the game. And she's like, oh, can I play the game? And Barbie says, I'm only creating the design ideas. Ha ha ha. I need Steve and Brian's help to turn it into a real game. I know, right?
She's Barbie.
Come on, man. Then what are we telling our young girls here? You can't code? Where's the I look like an engineer?
I think that's okay.
They're next door.
So she instructs you.
Exactly. And the other two interesting things that she showed which made me just go, yeah. Google CEO images. That's what you get. Google a receptionist. That's what you get. So, you know, we are socially kind of programmed this way. So she's a very, very interesting lady. And if you wanted to ping her, she'd be more than delighted, I'm sure, to talk to you guys about your thoughts on gender bias. Go for it, James. Okay, so this guy was fantastic. This is Carl Fast from Normative. And he talked about embodied cognition. And what he talked about was understanding embodiment, and which is a thing right now. And well, it was always a thing, but it's like a thing that people are talking about now. And that's about, there actually is no difference between your body and your mind. It's not a separate thing. Your body actually affects your cognition and affects how you process information. Things that happen in and to your body is part of how your mind works. And the great points that he made from this one is, like, as problems and technologies get more and more complex, we need to design for the whole network. And that network, we're going from this design for the thing to the design for the user to the design for the body, mind, and context network. That was, like, I sat there going, oh, I wish I wasn't hungover. But it was great. And he talked about how Post-it notes were our external cognition and things like that. And I was going, oh, I feel a bit sad that I have to use Post-it notes. And he's like, no, the world is a cognitive resource. We should use it. Now, the last of the speakers was Adam Savage, dude who blows shit up on TV. And he started talking about art versus science, and art and science are the twin engines that push us forward as a society. And then Twitter. So Steve Portigal started a thing going, it's a false dichotomy. So then a big fat Twitter fight happened, and I was like, yeah, I agree. You know, I'm happy in both camps. And then more Twitter fight. And then everybody started talking about camping. And then we talked about glamping. And then we started talking about kale and spinach. And then we're like, this is the last speaker. I'm out of here. It's beer time. So it was really interesting to have those sorts of really big name speakers and see what they did with user experience. So I took this photo. This is a dude whose name I can't remember. And Jesse James Garrett. So lots of people were doing selfies with Jesse James, and it was like, you know, it was cool. But I did a different thing. I'm actually connected with him first on LinkedIn. And I'll tell you why that's a good thing. So what I've talked to him about is Adaptive Path, because they've been bought by Capital One. They've now split off all of their events stuff and all of their education stuff into adaptivepath.org. And so what we were talking about was how we could get the adaptivepath.org stuff over here to Australia by some magical means. I'm not entirely certain how that magical means is going to work, but stay tuned for that. So me going over to the United States and doing all those things, what next for IxDA? How does that actually affect us here? So the brilliant thing about going to the America is you get to meet all the Americans. So I hung out with a lot of the speakers and made some great connections for us. And so the first one that we're looking at doing some remote workshopping with is Indy Young. She's agreed to run a workshop. She's not going to do it for free. So we'll see how that's going to play out. I know, Americans, right. But yeah, so I've made some great contacts for us so that I can try and bring some of the big names that we don't get to see here very often over here, whether that's by Skype or Google Hangout or something else. I'll keep you posted as to how IxDA is going to deliver that. But yeah, thanks very much, guys.